During the recent primary debate, the GOP seemed to finally surrender its claim to being the party of law and order when 6 out of 8 candidates publicly agreed that they would support Donald Trump for the presidency if he wins the nomination, even if he's a convicted felon. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. Maybe check out my Patreon. I'd appreciate the support. All right, so as we've discussed on this channel and other progressive/liberal/democratic commentators have been saying for quite some time, particularly in the age of Trump, the Republican Party seems to have forfeited its claim to two things. Number one, being the party of Christian values, and number two, being the party of law and order. But just in case you had any doubts and you were a bit skeptical and you needed further proof of that fact, look no further than Wednesday's first official primary debate. Now, Trump wasn't there, but of course he was, as the moderators say, the elephant not in the room, and his shadow loomed large over the proceedings. Well, the moderators asked a very direct question of the 8 candidates pertaining to Trump. I'm going to play the clip, and we will unpack it and go from there.
But we are going to take a brief moment and talk about the elephant not in the room.
Former President Trump has been indicted in 4 different states on 91 counts. He will be processed tomorrow in Georgia at the Fulton County Jail for charges relating to the 2020 election loss.
You all signed a pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would. Just hold on. So just to be clear, Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you...
So it looked like Chris Christie there at the end was raising his hand in affirmation, which, by the way, would have been a colossal betrayal of everything he said about Trump publicly and also just incredibly immoral. But he was actually objecting to it, and we'll probably discuss that in a different clip. But right now, I want to focus on the response from the candidates on stage, 6 out of 8, and how it happened. So you instantly have Vivek Ramaswamy raise his hand. Then Nikki Haley follows a nanosecond later, Tim Scott, and then Doug Burgum, the people ironically on the far right of the stage. Then, after they raise their hands, and you can tell that Governor DeSantis is kind of glancing in that direction. He's like, I don't want to be the first one to do this. But after those 4 raise their hands and the crowd cheers, DeSantis' hand finally goes up. And then even Mike Pence, of famously Hang Mike Pence fame, in which Trump supporters wanted to kill him for refusing to, single-handedly overturn the results of the election and make Trump an unelected dictator for a second term. Only former Governor Asa Hutchinson and former Governor Chris Christie refused to raise their hands. They are the only 2 who took a principled stance to that question. And of course, they stand absolutely no chance of winning the Republican nomination. But 6 out of 8 said, listen, if he's a convicted felon, I don't care. As long as he's the nominee, I will support him. That is disgusting. They would imagine a counterfactual, folks. Imagine a world in which, let's switch parties. Let's say it's a Democratic primary debate, and you have Democratic candidates on stage, and let's say it's either Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama or anyone that Republicans used to hate. And imagine that any of them are under criminal indictment, credible criminal indictment. And how would Republicans react if in such a world, 6 out of 8 of the Democratic candidates said, yeah, listen, if so-and-so under criminal indictment, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, wins the nomination, it doesn't matter if they're a convicted felon, I will still support them. Republicans would be clutching their pearls, fainting in the streets, demanding to secede from the Union. But the GOP has just forfeited any and all principle in this respect. And if you need any further doubt about that, you need only look at the visceral reaction from a Republican, a lifelong Republican, and until recently the governor of Maryland, Larry Hogan. He was asked about this part in the debate, and heed his words.
Let's start with the notable moment that I know that you were looking at. A lot of people took notice of, and it's when the moderators asked the candidates to raise their hands and ask if they would still support Donald Trump as a nominee if he is in fact convicted in any of these criminal cases. Let's look at what happened.
You all signed a pledge.
We're going to skip that part since we saw it already, but this is Governor Hogan's reaction.
Well, that was the low light of the entire debate. I mean, I was embarrassed and disgusted by it. The fact that, look, we've got to let the court cases play themselves out. We can't. Everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. But no man is above the law, not even the president of the United States. And for 6 people to raise their hand and say, "I would put a convicted felon in the White House," it's just beyond comprehension. I mean, in most states, convicted felons don't even have the right to vote. They're not registered voters, but we would put them in the White House. I mean, I was amazed that only Chris Christie and Asa Hutchinson stood up and said, they would follow the Constitution and the rule of law.
So the only thing I'll say in that respect is he shouldn't be surprised. Governor Hogan should not be surprised. This is my frustration with people like Governor Hogan and with Liz Cheney and with Adam Kinzinger, because he should, I mean, of course, disappointed, disgusted, those adjectives apply. But if you're a seasoned politician, as Governor Hogan is, this should not be surprising at all. This, to me, there's like a tacit confession here that relatively sane and moderate people like Hogan, like Kinzinger, I don't want to say Cheney because she's very, very conservative, but she has become more moderate because of Trump's stranglehold on her party. But when they're like, I'm so surprised. Why? Have you not been paying attention? Donald Trump, and it's not just Trump. I mean, really, as we discussed in previous videos, the radicalization and the increasing bad faith that has metastasized within the Republican Party predates Trump, right? I would argue, if not under Reagan, certainly under Newt Gingrich during the Clinton administration, and then it was taken even further by Mitch McConnell during the first 2 terms, or the only 2 terms of President Obama. And then, of course, Trump came along, right? And we've just seen it. MAGA is basically, I don't even want to say the culmination, because for all I know, for all you know, it could be considerably worse than this in another 4 years. But it's an increasing escalation of Governor Hogan's party. And if he missed that, if he was, then I don't know what to say. He was either ignorant or he has demonstrated an appalling lack of judgment. But either way, even he is offended by the trajectory and the depths to which that this party has, fallen. And again, for you and me and everyone in between, I think we have to stop entertaining this notion that the Republican Party is the party of Christian values and the party of law and order. And I think on an individual basis, and we need to lend our voices to the swelter, but we have to shout back and say, no, you don't get that claim anymore. We're taking those titles from you. We are relieving you of the reputational advantages of enjoying the, being the Christian party or the party of law and order. You don't get those perks anymore. You have not lived up to those reputations in any respect, and we have to stop agreeing to meet them on their terms. This has become a bad faith, disloyal, authoritarian cult of personality with no limiting principle and no counterweight on the left. I do not believe that in a counterfactual where you have Democratic candidates on a stage, that the Democrats would say, yes, if Joe Biden, yes, if Hillary Clinton, yes, if Barack Obama were convicted felons, we would support them for the White House. And as a matter of fact, I think it would be so absurd that no moderator would ever ask a Democratic candidate that question, because it would never occur to him that or her, that that's on the table. So anyway, just interesting stuff. I think we can officially declare this is the end of the GOP as the party of law and order, when in reality, they kind of forfeited that title a long time ago, but I think this marks an official end to it today.